Hi, I'm Darnell with Oven Recipes, and this is my 30-day review of the Ninja Foodi Dual Heat Air Fry Oven. And if you've not already seen it, I have done an initial review of this cooker where I did test cooks, measurements, comparisons with sizes of other cookers, and a whole lot of things that won't be done in this video. That video is where all the test cooks and such are done. And that video is where all the measurements are done. And that is where all the temperature tests and all that stuff is done. This video, I follow up 30 days later, and well, 30 days after using the cooker. It hasn't been more than 30 days because I was doing some other cooker reviews and things at that time. So I've been able to actually use this cooker for a full 30-day span now. And so now I can do a full up 30-day review of it. And in my 30-day review, I basically talk about how it is using this cooker, my experiences, impressions, my thoughts and comparisons with some other cookers after using it for some time. So be sure to see that earlier review. That's where all the, like I said, test cooks and other good stuff are done. If that's something you're interested in, be sure to check that out. Now, generally speaking, this is a great cooker. It's fabulous. As long as you can handle the size of it, as long as its size dimensions are good for you, it works great. It does everything well. I mean, I have nothing really bad to say about it as far as its functions overall, just generally speaking. There are some things that I do feel could be improved and, you know, that I didn't like so much, but as far as just generally speaking, it's a great cooker. And that's if the size works for you. Of course, this is a slimmer cooker than a lot of other cookers, so that is something to consider. But it's a really good cooker, though, for sure. Now, when it comes to the overall evenness of cooks, I found something interesting with this cooker. Basically, it's got the fan over here on this side, and so the fan, when things are cooking, is kind of blowing that hot air across over this way. It seems, interestingly enough, that things that are on this side don't get as brown as things over on this side, as if, I guess, the hot air is blowing over this way. Things over here, like when I'm doing like the almond flour cookies, you've probably seen that video already. Things over here get just a little more browner than things over here. Generally speaking, it's fairly even. It's something you have to really be looking at very carefully to notice the difference. But things on this side cook just a bit more, get a little more browner than things over here on this side. It's just something that I found interesting. The cooker does have a nicely sealed door. It's got some sealing on it and things stay in there pretty well. One thing that I didn't like about this cooker is that when you open the door, it doesn't auto pause. You have to hit the button to pause when you want to open up. I feel that every cooker made should just have auto pause when you open the door. I just think it should just be a standard for all cookers. Now, something interesting to keep in mind with this cooker is that with it being as slim as it is, air frying could sometimes be a little tricky depending on how you are used to doing it. Usually you want to put stuff in an air fry basket and put like a pan underneath or something to catch drippings. With this cooker, because of how slim it is, you can't put the air fry basket on level 2 and put the like sear plate underneath to catch drippings because things are too slim. You can't have the air fry basket on level 2 and do that. And you know, if you had it up at the top, it's kind of like really close to the heating elements. So usually for air frying of anything that has drippings, I would just put it into the sear plate, and it would air fry just fine. It would air fry just fine in the sear plate. So that's something to keep in mind. If it's something that doesn't have a lot of drippings, then you can just use your air fry basket and be good to go. I ran into something interesting when using the dual heat functions on this cooker because all the dual heat functions have a long preheat. All the air oven functions don't. So if you do something that needs the dual heat functions and it's frozen and it's really big, you basically let that preheat run and then you put your stuff in there on the sear plate. Well, what happens if it's a really big piece of frozen meat or something really big and frozen? It will reduce the overall temperature in the cooker when you put it in. And so what happens is when you start to cook, well, you press the button to start to cook after you pause it to put your stuff in there on the sear plate, the cooker recognizes that it's cooler and it goes into preheat again, trying to preheat up to where it was in order to get there and then start cooking and start counting down time. So you could put something really big and frozen in there after the preheat, then it goes right back into part of a preheat again before it even starts cooking, which could kind of throw off your cooking time or how long you're going to cook things, because you don't know how much longer that preheat's going to run. So I found if it's something really big and frozen that you need to put in there, use like one of the air oven functions, and just put it on a sear plate and use the air oven function, and then you can use a more predictable cooking time. But it's just a little tricky there. I feel like once it's done with its initial preheat, the thing should just go after you start, put your food in and press the button to start again and start to cook. Just start cooking. Don't detect that you need to preheat some more, because I don't want you to continue preheating anymore. I want you to just start cooking. Something to keep in mind. Now in the user interface, it's not too bad, but it's not the most intuitive user interface to me, because you've got like the air oven and the dual heat buttons on the top, and you got your time and temp on the bottom, and sometimes you'll be just going in to do your time and temp or something. You might press the wrong button. You might press the dual heat button when you want to do time and temp, or vice versa. And so you just got to remember, after using it for a while, you'll get used to where the buttons are. But it just seemed to me their positioning was just a little less than intuitive for me compared to some other cookers. But it's something that you get used to. Overall, the user interface isn't too bad though, but it takes a little getting used to. Now this cooker cooks things very hot. It can get up to like around 500 degrees. The max temperature is 500 degrees for this cooker. So it can get things pretty hot. And with that, even if you're using a high smoke point oil, you could still have some smoke, because even higher smoke point oils start to break down when you get over that 450 range, or around that 450 range. They can still break down. So it's best, even with a higher smoke point oil, and I know you all have your favorites, but even with those high smoke point oils, probably not good to use them if you're going to be cooking like 450, 500. Probably not good to use them at all. If you're going to be cooking like 450, 500, just don't use the extra oil, and just get by without the oil, because you're probably going to have some excess smoke, especially with like the sear plate. It's probably going to get smoky, and it could get pretty nasty. Your smoke alarms might start complaining. Now, when it comes to the dimension of the cooker, I did do a full measurement of everything in the initial review, and I showed how the 13-inch bake pan that I have would not fit. And I will say that most 13-inch bake pans are not going to fit, because most are not specific to the dimensions that this cooker requires, even though if you had the most perfect 13-inch bake pan in the world, it would fit, if it's the most perfect in the world. But most are not. Even ones without handles, most are not. So to me, 13-inch bake pans typically are not going to fit, because most are not the perfect from top to bottom all around. I mean, even the ones that are 13 inches with no handles down bottom, they might come out just a little bit and still not fit in there right. So most 13-inch bake pans are not going to fit in here. You probably want to use pans that are smaller, unless you've just got, the great, well-dimensioned 13-inch bake pan that doesn't go outside of the literal box, so to say. Now I want to talk about each of the functions in the cooker, and I do have my notes here to make sure that I don't miss anything that I want to talk about. First, I'm going to talk about some of the dual heat functions, and I'm going to talk about the Sear Crisp. Sear Crisp works great, works really well. You get some real nice Maillard reaction, real nice searing on your meats. I really like the Sear Crisp, so it's great. The Rapid Bake, to me, it's just a bake with a full lengthy preheat. So, it's basically, do you want to do the full lengthy preheat, or do you just want to put things in over on the air oven side where you can have a bake function that does a 1-minute preheat? Either way, I've found that things turn out about the same. And so for me, just being able to put stuff in there before that 1-minute quick preheat on the air oven side for bake, that works out just fine. when you're using the rapid bake, you've got to wait through its full preheat and then put your stuff in on a hot sear plate that's already hot. And I don't feel like you really gain a lot. Or, I mean, sure, it goes faster on time because you already waited through a preheat. But what's the point? You may as well just do your air oven bake and just add more time to it. Either way, you're going to end up probably using about the same amount of time in the end, in my opinion. So rapid bake is just really bake with a longer preheat. The frozen pizza function I did not use because I don't do frozen pizzas anymore. The fresh pizza option works well, and in the initial review I did cook a pizza in it, and I basically cooked the pizza in 5 minutes, so it went pretty quick, and it had some crispness on the bottom, so that worked out pretty well. The griddle function works fabulous. I really like the griddle function on this cooker. I really do. There'll be more videos coming using the griddle function because it's really nice, and you'll see how nice that is to use in some versatile types of cooks. To me, it very much can replace a griddle or basically a skillet type of thing if you have the need to use this type of cooker depending on where you are, instead of a griddle, instead of a like pan and such like that. You could use this cooker to replace it depending on your circumstances. There are a lot of people that always ask, well, why wouldn't you just use it? A lot of people just don't understand. Different people have different circumstances you don't understand. It's just the way life is. But this could replace a griddle, definitely. Now let's jump over to the air oven functions. The air fry function works well, and even when using a sear plate, as I mentioned, it works well. The air roast function also works very well. Keeps your food pretty moist. Already talked about bake. I like this bake on the air oven side better because you can just put your food in and go. Broil I did not use. Toast works well, but it doesn't adjust for when the cooker's already hot. There are some cookers that do. This is not one of them. Didn't use bagel because I didn't have any bagels and don't really eat a lot of bagels. Reheat works nicely, and it doesn't dry out your food. Reheat works great. I don't use a microwave. Everything I was reheating every day, all day was going in here, and it worked out great. I didn't use the dehydrate function either. So that's basically how the functions go with this cooker, in my opinion. Now, changing time and temp on the fly with this cooker works out very nice, very easy to adjust time and temp if needed during the middle of a cook. I will say, with the noise level, it's not loud. It's not a very loud cooker at all. But something to keep in mind, the fan on this cooker is going to run for a long time after you're done using it. So when your cook's done, you can turn the cooker off. The fan's still going to run for a while until it really cools down really well. So just leave it alone. Let the fan run. It will eventually stop. It's going to take a while. Just leave it. And once that's done, if you want to flip it up, you can flip it up. If you want to just leave it down, then, hey, you're already done anyway. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, cleaning this cooker, generally speaking, is easy. For like the air fry basket, I just knock off the excess stuff and put it in the top rack of the dishwasher. It cleans real easy. The inside, although it's quick and easy to clean, it does hold some stains. And as I always say, I don't care about the stains. I just leave them. But I don't, care about any magic potions to get the stuff off, or, even though I have barkeeper's friend and all that, I don't really care. So I just want to show you inside that it does hold some stains in there on the sides and the back. The drip pan, you can see, definitely holds some stains on there for sure. So, if you're into wanting yours to look just perfect, hey, this thing holds some stains and you're going to have to deal with that, and you can do whatever you want to do with that. The sear plate is very non-stick. However, if you're cooking something like cooking eggs using the griddle, then the stuff from the egg is going to stick on here. What you can do is you can put it back in there, back in the cooker after you get your eggs out, and that stuff that's stuck on, if you leave it in there while things are cooling down, the sear plate is going to cause that excess stuff that was stuck to the sear plate to kind of rise up off of it as it gets crusty, and then it's easy to get off. But the simplest thing to do is just use a high smoke point oil, spray some on here, And then if you're going to cook like eggs or something, you can put your eggs on there and cook them up and they'll come right off, no problem. But generally speaking, the sear plate is non-stick. It's just some things are going to stick to it somewhat. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Now let's do some comparisons with some other cookers. I will be checking my notes here to make sure that I don't miss anything that I want to say. And I do want to mention that as far as comparisons, if I don't mention some cooker that you like, you'll have to look at some other videos, reviews and such. And there's plenty here on this channel. This channel's got nearly 700 videos of different cookers with cookings and reviews and such. Just see what you like and make your decision. But I'm not trying to cover every cooker and every comparison. I'm just trying to give a general idea, and that's it. The rest I leave to you. So basically we're going to start out with the Emeril Lagasse Power Air Fry 360. And I'm going to be talking about both the non-XL and XL version in relation to their comparisons with this cooker, because since this is an air fry oven, I will compare it to even the larger size air fry oven since it's an air fry oven. And the Ninja, I'll say, has better build quality than the Emeril 360 cookers. And the sear plate that this Ninja has is definitely a plus. I'll say that the Ninja is definitely better than the non-XL version of the Emeril Power Air Fryer 360. As far as the XL, just because of its size, just because it can hold more, I'd say that the XL is better than this Ninja, but that's just a size issue. So that's something you know going in. The next that I want to compare it to is the Gourmet Digital French Door Air Fry Oven. And that's been one that's been a pretty good deal. People have been able to find and cook with effectively. The Ninja handles smoke better than that Gourmet does. And this Ninja retains temperature better than the Gourmet does. And the sear plate is definitely a plus. So although the Gourmet is larger in that case, I do prefer the Ninja just because of the things that I mentioned. All those pluses beat out the Gourmet in my opinion. So between the two, I like the Ninja. The next that I'm going to compare to is the Cuisinart Chef's Convection Toaster Oven. And this one's a close call. And I'll go with the Cuisinart because it can hold a little more, and it can hold the 13-inch bake pan. Of most 13-inch bake pans with no handles will fit into the Cuisinart, and it has convection fan control. So for me, the Cuisinart Chef's Convection Toaster Oven wins over the Ninja. The last cooker that I'm going to compare this dual heat air fry oven to is Ninja's XL Pro Air Fry Oven. The Ninja Foodi XL Pro Air Fry Oven is still my champ, still number one, still my favorite of all cookers generally speaking. The dual heat is smaller and has a sear plate, which is nice, and the flip up is a neat feature if you need it, and it can cook up to 500 degrees. But the XL, it's larger, it's got the nice Ninja build quality, and a lot of the features on the XL are similar to this smaller dual heat one. And it also supports, you know, just holding lots more food and dehydrating more. With that XL, I can dehydrate like 4 racks at the same time, and that XL, you can't dehydrate as much here at the same time. So the XL definitely wins, and that Ninja Foodi XL Pro Air Fry Oven is, as I said, the number one for me of all cookers still. And so it's been a pretty good run for the Ninja XL Pro Air Fry Oven being number one. Usually, you know, it doesn't usually take too long for me to get another one that I like over the previous one that I like. But the Foodi XL Pro Air Fry Oven is holding on to the top status here for me still for a good long time, pretty good time. So I do want to point out that nothing in this video is sponsored. Nothing that I show in my videos, you know, I don't work with these cooker companies. I have my own independent voice. I say my own thing, do my own thing. I don't run any deals with them. They don't give me anything. I buy my stuff at stores just like everybody else. So with all of that said, you know, in the video description, lots of ways to help the channel, my cookbook, there's memberships, donations, stuff like that if you want to help the channel. And now that we're all done, I hope that you did like this review. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, share the video with a friend, leave your comments, subscribe, hit that notification icon, and good eating.